Welcome to this Knowledge Days training session. Let me advance the slide here past our Best of Knowledge Days to tell you, make sure you know you're here for the Managing Electronic Resources, the basics. I am Kevin Lane-Cummings with Amanda Shriver, and we are from the Global Knowledge Delivery team at Ex Libris and ProQuest. And today's session is in fact about managing electronic resources. And so I wanted to make sure you know who we are. I am a training services consultant. So one of the things that I do is training clients such as you. Also with me is Amanda Shriver. I'll let her unmute and make sure that we can hear her as well.
Hi everyone, Amanda here.
Thanks, Amanda. Today's session, about an hour long, and you would have seen this description probably when you were signing up for it, that it's really all about efficient management of electronic resources. Our objectives to help you today is that by the end of this session, you'll know how to find electronic resources in the community zone, order them, and activate them. And along the way, we'll have a few other things to show you as well. But those are my primary objectives for the day. And who I'm expecting you are is that there could be some of you who are new to Alma entirely. You've just started using it. Or maybe you have been using it at your institution, but you've just recently been brought into doing electronic services at your institution. Or your acquisition staff and you're used to doing acquisitions for maybe print materials, but you'd like to be able to also do acquisitions for electronic materials. If you're not one of these folks, you're welcome here too. We're so glad you're here because you can learn something too, because we are doing the basics. This is just, in fact, I should mention that if you want to know more than I cover here today, there is another session later in June called Electronic Resource Management, the advanced session. And we'll talk about some different things. But the things we'll be talking about today are an overview and background of electronic resources in Alma and how you and Alma manage those electronic resources kind of in a high level sense, but then we'll dig right into ordering them, placing an order with a vendor for an e-resource. That's not all you have to do, though. To get it available to your patrons, you then need to activate those e-resources. So I'll show you several different methods of that. And then we'll wrap this up with the things you can do next. So let's begin with an overview and background of how Alma works with your electronic resources and how you work with Alma to do that. We'll cover 6 general areas in this first 20 minutes or so of the session, starting right away with some terminology. The words that I'm going to be using to describe e-resources and the way that Alma uses these kind of words, it may be different than how you have used them before. And so I want to make sure we're kind of on the same page, using the same language and terminology. So first, let me give you a couple of these terms. We use the word electronic collection to describe something that you might call or a vendor might call a package or a database or something like that. In Alma, there are 3 different types of collections: the aggregator package, the selective package, and the database. An aggregator package would be some kind of package of materials, resources, electronic resources that you purchase from a vendor and you buy them all together. You buy the one package and you get everything that's in the package. All the titles, all the portfolios, whatever term you want to use, you get them. And if the vendor sells more, adds more to that package later, you'll get them too. A selective package is different in the sense that it is a large package of titles that a vendor sells, but you as an institution pick individual titles, individual resources within that package that you actually pay for one by one. And finally, an electronic collection could be the type called database. And I know that's a word that's used in different ways with different vendors and things like that. In Alma, we use the word database for an electronic collection to be a package that there is no full text, that you have purchased, for instance, an abstracting and indexing resource or something like that, where they're just selling you the citations, they're not selling you the actual full text content. Those types of packages in Alma are databases. Now, I mentioned kind of along the way that there is another word called portfolio, which is sort of the same as calling a title, but there's an important difference. A portfolio is an individual title, a serial or a monograph title, that is part of or probably included in a package, an electronic collection. Some portfolios are standalone. Most of them are built into the collections. And the reason we don't just use the word title for these resources that live in these packages and these collections is because a single title, a particular journal or a particular book, could appear in many different collections from many different vendors. The title is all the same. Perhaps even the bibliographic record is the same, but every time it's a different collection that has that title, it is sort of contained in a different portfolio. And so that's the term we'll use for that. The final term that I want to make sure you all know is the service. Every electronic collection has some kind of service, which is the connection and linking information that is offered by that package, whether it's a full text service or selected full text where the provider doesn't give you all the full text for the entire range of materials in the package, or no full text at all, no service, which would be something like an electronic database where there's no full text content at all. So you'll hear these words coming up throughout today's presentation, so I wanted to make sure that we get them taken care of at the beginning. Electronic resource levels, we've kind of talked about this. A collection is a group of portfolios, and a collection also has a service. So let me show you how that works kind of in an example. So at the electronic collection level, we might have this example here, the SciTech Premium Collection. From a particular vendor, that is the name of the collection, and that is how it appears in ALMA. Within that collection, there is a service. In this case, the SciTech Premium Collection has a full text service because it is available. All the materials, all the resources in that electronic collection are available in full text as published by that particular vendor. Within that collection is a list of the portfolios, all the titles that are within that collection. In this case, there's almost 8,000 titles and portfolios, different e-journals in the SciTech Premium Collection. And some of those, one of those titles is this example, the Biomedical Journal, ISSN has shown, date coverage of 2013 to present. So that is a specific example of a title, but it's really the portfolio within this collection. When you purchase material from a vendor, electronic resource material, you're going to see, you take several steps to get through there. First thing you do in ALMA or in any system is you need to get the bibliographic data about that resource, whatever the data is. It could be data that Ex Libris has already collected and you can just use that bibliographic data, or maybe you get it for some national organization or like the Library of Congress in the United States or whatever, wherever you get the bibliographic data. Once you have it, you're able to order the material. Now, after that's done, you need to activate it and make it available to your patrons in your discovery service. And finally, somehow they'll be probably paying for it. Unless it is free material and open access, there's probably going to be some kind of payment involved. Today's session on the basics of e-resource management, we will not be covering invoicing and things like that and the payment process. Instead, we'll deal with the first three aspects of the ordering workflow. Not everyone at your institution, I mean, not all the staff members at your institution can do everything in this workflow. It depends on the ALMA roles you have for your user as a user in ALMA. So these are the 5 different roles in ALMA that are necessary to do e-resource management. Purchasing operator, electronic inventory operator, repository manager, trial manager or trial operator, and invoice operator. Someone at your institution will need these roles. It could be several different people. It could be one person who has them all to do all of the possible things in e-resource management. Today's session, we will only require the first 3 of the roles here. We're not going to be talking about trials today, and we're not going to be talking about invoicing and things like that. Trials, for instance, will be talked about in the advanced session later this month. Okay. That's the first couple of items I wanted to talk about in background for this session. Now let's dig into the inventory model, how things are built, a little more information about this. just kind of building off what we just saw, but now I want to show you what happens when there is electronic resources from multiple packages. In other words, the same journal or book could be and probably is available from multiple packages, multiple collections. And let's see how Alma deals with that. Here's an example of a title, Canadian Social Trends. It's a journal of some kind, and the bibliographic record could be this entity right here for the title itself. But in fact, that title is sold by, it's available from several different vendors. Probably a lot. I've just put 3 of them up here just to give you a sense of them. On the left, we have the Gale Cengage Academic ASAP collection or package. That's a single package service, but it's also sold by, in the middle, the ProQuest Pharma Collection new platform. And maybe it's also available from the free e-journals in a single package service. So that is the collection level that we're seeing here. This one title is available from several different vendors and several different collections. Each of those collections has a service associated with it. In this case, it turns out all 3 of these collections and these vendors provide the full text service of this journal available cover to cover from the date range that they make it available. What is different then is the portfolio. At the bottom here, we have the portfolio associated with each of these packages for this one title. On the left, the Gale Cengage, that's just available for a single year that the Gale has made available. ProQuest Pharma Collection has the portfolio available of 1998 to 2012 for that title. And the free e-journals package has 1998 to present. I should tell you, if you go look these up later, this is probably different than it actually appears in Alma. This is just an example to kind of give you a sense of why there's an important difference between the title, which kind of carries over this whole group of content, and each individual portfolio associated with those collections. When you're using Alma and you want to find these resources, whether it's in your own institution's collection or in some other kind of collection, I do want you to be aware of the advanced search capability. It is really, really useful, and I will show you a few examples in just a few minutes. But using the power of the advanced search helps you identify key information about the collections and the portfolios in your library, which is what we call the institution zone, or in the community zone, which is the shared resource of bibliographic information available to all institutions. And so it's an important difference to know whether you're looking at the institution zone, your library content, your institution content, or the community zone. And so I'll show you how that works for an example here. I'm actually going to try this one right away. We're going to use advanced search. You don't need to follow along with this at this point, but later you can go back and look at this PowerPoint presentation and just use the examples that are shown here just to try them out and make sure that you're familiar with how to use them. I'm going to use it to find a database collection, specifically one in my institution zone, where the collection is the type database. And if you recall, a database collection is one that does not have full text. It's just, for instance, abstracting and indexing contents, citation materials. So I'm going to switch over to my Alma and show this to you. So here I have logged into Alma, and I'm going to go up to the top here to open up the advanced search system. And so first thing I need to choose is what kind of material am I going to be searching for. And I mentioned I'm going to be searching for an electronic collection. So then I need to choose my zone, institution zone and community zone. We'll talk about the community zone in a few minutes. The institution zone is my material at my institution. And what we're looking for is an electronic collection type. So I need to go down and find the electronic collection section on my drop-down menu and see electronic collection type, and I'll choose that. Electronic collection type equals, and I want to change this drop-down menu to database. Again, that's the citation-only kind of content, and let's just see all of the collections in my institutional resources, my institution zone, that have the type of database. And see, there's one right there. The Sage Open Access 2014 is a type database. And there's several more here in my test instance of ALMA. This is a training ALMA, so it probably won't be representative of the kind of things you see. And just like that, I can see which ones I have added to my institution zone. Back in my PowerPoint, I'm going to go on to the next example of using the advanced search to find things. I'm going to find the linking level of some services available. In this case, I'm going to search in the community zone for an electronic collection where the service is free and the linking level is article, meaning that the content can be accessed through a discovery service down to the article level. So let's try that out over here in ALMA. I'm going to do the advanced search again. This time I'm again searching for an electronic collection, but this time I want to search in the community zone. We'll get to what that community zone is in a minute. I know I'm kind of moving past that, but we will talk about it. And now what we're looking for is the free service. So in that collection, is there a free service right there equals, let's find the ones that are actually free to anyone. These are not, I'm not subscribed to this. I haven't added this to my collection. It's not available to my patrons for discovery because I'm going to be looking in the community zone, which is the kind of general repository of bibliographic data. But there are hundreds of collections that meet that that meet the idea of free service equals free. However, I forgot to add my second qualification in the advanced search. I wanted to say check to see if it was free, but I need to add a row here and make sure the Boolean and is set, because what I'm looking for is the linking level on my collections is, let's scroll down and find that linking level. Here it is, equals article, so that I want to know which collections have in the database, in the knowledge base of the community zone, have links directly to articles, and they are free. And let's see, of those 273 collections, 26 of them, it looks like, 26 have article level linking. And we could get some of these content. I was going to say we could buy them, but we don't even need to buy them because they're free. We could make them available to our patrons. So before I show you how to do that, let me go back to my presentation to cover one last subject that I keep putting off. I'm going to talk about the community zone. For those of you who haven't used the community zone, it can be confusing to what that means, and so I should address that now. The community zone in ALMA is the central community catalog. It's a single repository of MARC records, bibliographic data that comes from the publishers and partners that work with Ex Libris. We at Ex Libris put those records, clean them up, make sure they're accurate, make sure they reflect what the vendor is selling, so that you as an institution at your library have easy access to the records that you might want to bring into your local catalog, so that you don't have to come up with the bibliographic records yourself, or you don't have to get them from the vendor and type them in yourself. They exist in this community zone. The goal of having that community zone is just to save you time, so that instead of you having to actively update those records whenever the vendor changes the content or deal with authority control, any other acquisitions tasks, that can become very efficient because our metadata librarians at Ex Libris are the ones who are doing this to make sure the community zone records reflect what is sold by the vendors and that you are purchasing when you order these resources. There are well over 8,000 collections in the community zone and well over 20 million full text object portfolios. It is updated every week by the metadata librarians that work for Ex Libris based on the information that comes from the vendors to make sure that we keep it as updated as possible. However, that is not everything in the world. There is much more out there than is available in the community zone so far. In some cases, we haven't got the vendors to provide it to us. In some cases, this is libraries themselves are making this. So we have established ways for you to contribute to the community zone so that we can take bibliographic information that has come from somewhere else that is not yet in the community zone and bring it into the community zone through you, through efforts that you have done. For this to work, your ALMA must be in production. Some of you may be watching this and you have not yet switched over to ALMA as your service. Maybe you're using another ILS system of some kind, but you're working on converting to this. As soon as you are part of production, you're in production and you're alive with Alma, you are welcome to help us by contributing to the community zone. Some of the ways you can do that is you can update community zone bibliographic records that have been copied into your institution zone. You could also add certain portfolios into the community zone. There are certain collections that we strongly encourage you all to add to. If you're aware of free e-journals or the collection called miscellaneous e-journals, miscellaneous free e-books, and then U.S. government documents, if you find that the community zone is missing some content in one of those collections and you have the bibliographic record, wonderful, please contribute it. You could even contribute entire collections to the community zone. Now, we're not going to leave you kind of totally responsible and it's all up to you to put it in. This will go through our metadata librarians, and all the details about that is available in the Knowledge Center. If you just search for contributing to the community zone in the Ex Libris Knowledge Center, you can read more details about how this works and service level agreements that are necessary that we work out with you for these contributions. But it's a wonderful way to keep the community zone growing beyond what our Ex Libris staff is able to do, because there's stuff out there that we know would be very helpful if other folks didn't have to enter it themselves into the community zone. They could just go into the community zone and take the bibliographic records and start working with them. So thank you for doing that. All right, that is the overview and background of managing e-resources in Alma. So finally, let's get into how to order materials using Alma for getting some e-resource access. These are the subjects I'm going to cover in this area, beginning with the general ordering workflow, which we actually have seen a minute ago, but we'll just put it up on the screen for a second here. The general ordering workflow that I'm going to show you today is first find a collection in the community zone. There are other ways of ordering using material and bibliographic records, but you always have to start with the bibliographic records from somewhere. Either you provide them, or the vendor provides them, or they're in the community zone, and that's how we will do it today. You need to make a decision. Is this a one-time order or is it a subscription order? Usually pretty obvious depending on the kind of content that you're getting. Make a decision about which acquisitions team will own the order. Could be several teams at your institution, different libraries or different groups who do the acquisitions. One team needs to be kind of responsible or own the order. You'll be selecting the license, the supplier, the access provider, and so forth, and I'll show you that in just a minute. And in fact, I'm going to demonstrate that right now with this demonstration. I'm using a document that Ray talked about. It's a hands-on activities document that's available on the Knowledge Center. Not for you to follow along right now, just for you to know it's there so that after today's session, you can go look at that and work through the different activities to practice some of the things we're talking about. I am going to do it live in Alma right from that document, just so you can get a sense of how this works. First thing I need to do is search for the bibliographic information in the community zone. So I'm going to use my search box up at the top. I'm going to search for an electronic collection where the electronic collection name is Reuter Harvard. And it defaulted to this search scope of the institution, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted the community zone. So I'm going to change, I'm going to change that record search in the community zone to find the bibliographic record of an electronic collection which has this name. And let's see what comes up. It's got to search through quite a lot of material. The one I want is this year's one. No, I want a package right here. Yeah, let's use this year's one. Right here is a Scholars Portal Books, de Gruyter Harvard 2021. Just you can see here, it is a selective package. That means that de Gruyter normally assumes we will purchase individual books from this collection. You know, there's only one portfolio available, one title available. I'm going to grab last year's 2020 because that has a few more portfolios to work with. So once I identify the one that I want, the Scholars Portal Books, I go to the row actions over here and I click order. I'm going to place an order for this material. Well, I'm going to build an order here in Alma. This first page of the ordering process is where I need to pick what type of order is it. And you'll see that Alma has made a recommendation based on the bibliographic information on whether this is then a one-time selection or a subscription order. I want to order a subscription, get this on a regular basis. That's how they sell it. It's not a one-time electronic book orders. Then I need to choose who is going to own this order, which acquisition team is going to order it. It's actually the main library team that I'm going to be pretending that I'm part of today. Which, by the way, I should be sure to show you up here at the top. I did want to make sure that I'm at the right location. This is the acquisition department of the main library. I'm not at a circulation desk or anything like that. I'm the acquisitions department. That makes a difference on what tools I see. The last field over here is that I'm using a template. I'm not going to use a template. That's we're not going to talk about that kind of thing today, but that is available. And then up in the upper right corner, create purchase order line. Now it is building this first purchase order line for this order based on the bibliographic information from the community zone that we've got about this package, about this collection. And on this page, there are quite a number of fields that can be filled out. We're going to go through not all of them, but a few of them, just to give you the key ones that you need to, that are required fields or that could be confusing. But because I can't show you everything today, I do want to point out my favorite part of Alma and how it can help you out. Upper right corner here, the help button. I click the help button and help for this page. If you haven't already discovered this, try it out. It is such a nice tool built into Alma. You just click that, and whatever page you're on, Alma will open up the Knowledge Center article about that page, manually creating a purchase order line. And every field is explained in this table. What's it about? What kind of choices you have when you fill it out, things like that, all on this page. Such a great advice spot to get you what you need. I'm going to begin right here with this first section, the ordered items section. We need to select a license. So this is electronic material. There's probably a license involved. License need to be built before I do this. So someone on my team needs to have already created the licenses for the various materials. I'm just going to grab ProQuest for the sake of discussion here, but you want to make sure that that's already built before you even place the order. Here's the content that we are ordering, that book package. It is a selective package. It has not been activated yet. Then we move into the vendor information. So who is selling this to us? Well, the vendor is a required field. You can see from the star there. So select from the list of vendor accounts that have been created. Again, this would have to have been created in advance by the acquisitions team configuring the vendors right there. That's who you pay. The material supplier, I know it's a little bit silly to say the material supplier when you're talking about an e-resource, but the material supplier is, in this case, is who do you pay? Who are you paying for this resource? That could be different than the access provider over here. Where, kind of what is the URL base field that you go to get the materials, that your patrons will go to find the actual content? That could be different. In my case, it's just going to be ProQuest again, just for discussion's sake, but there will be situations where you will choose a vendor that's different than an access provider, and this is your chance to make that selected difference. You can fill out some more information about claiming grace period and expected activation date and so forth. They're not required fields, and the help file will explain what each of these is for and how it can help your workflow. I'm going to move down to the pricing section. There is a price, whatever price that the vendor told me was going to be. I'm giving a good deal. It's a $49.98 for the list price. If there was a discount built into that vendor, that would appear here. Or if they're giving me a discount, I could apply it right there. And now I'm going to move down to the funding section. So within Alma, there are funds that you create at your institution, different groups, pots of money, different groups of funds of money that are represented. You do need to pick a fund. I know it doesn't have that little red asterisk down here but a fund actually is required, as you can see when you pop it open, that you have to pick a fund, one of the funds. Again, funds must already have been created. And so I will just grab a fund here. I'm going to use the EResource Humanities Fund for this. I hope I have enough money in that fund. You'll notice it says 100%. I have the option of not putting all of it from one fund. I could split it between multiple funds. For today, I'm just going to have 100% from that Humanities Fund. I did notice going through that that there can be there are questions about how to set these things up, how to configure material supplier, how to add a license. That's all configuration materials that's would be done separately, and different staff at your institution would do that. We do have other training sessions to show how to create a license, how to create a fund, and so forth. So now we have a fund to bring some money for this situation, and we're going to move down here to the purchase order line details section. There's a number of different fields here. Let me talk first about the acquisition method. This can definitely be confusing to folks, and so I want to go through this for you. I'll do the easy ones first. If you receive a gift from somebody of some material, that's often going to be a physical gift. You would choose this acquisition method, the gift. Or perhaps you are a depository. I believe that's the kind of terminology that is used, for instance, if your library receives some kind of material, for instance, from a government institution or something like that, where you're not buying the material, but you're holding it, making it available on behalf of some other organization or institution. Again, you're not purchasing it per se. There's a technical acquisition. This would be kind of an unusual situation. For instance, maybe you buy a physical material, like a physical book, and then you also receive for free electronic access to an electronic resource version of that book. Well, that second electronic access was free, right? But it was not free in the sense that it was associated with the purchase of the physical book. You might use the technical acquisition method for the second item, for the free along with the first item. Most often you will probably use purchase or purchase at vendor system. If you choose the acquisition method of purchase, then when we're done on this page and you save the purchase order line, this package right here, this line, this purchase order line, will wait until tonight and get grouped with any other purchases you're making from this vendor and get sent out as an order to the vendor. On the other hand, if we say purchase at vendor system, that is where you would have gone to the vendor's system, maybe go to the actual website of the vendor, make a purchase manually there, like use your own credit card or your corporate credit card or something like that. And then you come back here in Alma and you want to make sure there's a record of the order that was placed, but you don't want Alma to actually go place the order. For practice purposes, when you're in here just playing around, just trying something out, use the purchase at vendor system, because you want the purchase to happen right away, and it won't happen right away if you choose this purchase line. Instead, by choosing an acquisition method of purchase, this purchase order line will wait until tonight, when there is a special job that runs in Alma to group this purchase with other purchase order lines from the vendor, and then the order gets sent out. The order could get sent by email. It could be sent by electronic data interchange if you have that set up with the vendor. That doesn't matter for this idea, but the important thing is choose the method that is going to be used. And if you're just doing it like I am doing, which is just for practice, things happen much faster if you just choose purchase at vendor system. You can choose the material type. This is a book package I think we're purchasing. If there was no charge, if we're getting this free, like the free material or the depository example or something like that, or that technical method that we were seeing, you'd choose no charge, and then the fund field is not required and the pricing field is not required. The invoice status, there's no invoice yet. Invoicing will happen later, and I'm not doing it for you today. I'm going to skip on down here. There's some reporting codes. These are all predefined by my institution. for all the different kinds of reporting codes we want. And reporting codes are just used for analytics. It's just a way of saying these are some, we're tracking this particular material because it's going to be used by the economics department and something like that, and I want to be able to do some analytics later on. There's lots of different options for here. Because this is a subscription, we need to discuss renewal. And so there's a whole section here for renewal. I can choose to manually renew it or automatically renew it and have Alma do the renewal. Usually I like to manually renew it. So now I need to enter some information about that renewal. For instance, the subscription, when does it start? Well, it's going to start on July 1 of this year, and it's going to go to July 1 of next year. I'm just going to type in, I can manually type in here quicker than I can find it. So it's a 1-year subscription. The renewal date is a required field, and this is the date that the vendor needs to know we want to renew it. So the vendor said they need to know on June 1st of 2022, about a month before the subscription ends. Okay, that's when we need to tell them we want to renew it next year, but we need some time to decide if we want to renew it. So I want to have my acquisition team be reminded 30 days before the renewal date. So that's what this field is about. 30 days before the time that the vendor needs to know we're renewing, my team is going to get together, and this reminder will pop up in our task list of something we need to discuss, something we need to check how much usage we've had on it. Is this worth it? Do our faculty members appreciate what we're having, and are they getting what they want, and so forth? That'll give us a month to be able to discuss that next year. And that's the key fields I wanted to show you on this page for this purchase order line details. But we need to save it. And the simplest way to do that is to click save. If I save it, it will just stay here on this page and I can work with it or come back to it later, but it doesn't move off the reviewing that I'm working on. It's still on my plate in a sense. It's still on me to finish working on it. If I click order now, which is what I'm going to do in just a minute, that moves this purchase order line to the next step in the process, which is probably packaging it into a purchase order and get ready to be approved in the purchase order. Some other options are I could start a trial if I have the trial permissions, trial roles, or if I don't have the trial role, I can request it be done. We're choosing to purchase this, but we want it to be evaluated. Some other options, I can just delete this if I decide I didn't want to do it. We talked about a template on the previous page. If I want to save the background information, all the things like the material supplier and the access provider and so forth, I could save it and use that later. If I click save and continue, it will just save this and I could be ready to make the next order that I'm making, and then later on it will package this up, but I want to order it now. Again, for training purposes, I'm just going to say order it now, because down here at the bottom, I said purchase at vendor system. There won't be an actual order placed with the vendor because I've told Alma I already did it. In pretend, I already did it. So I'm going to place the order now, and we are going to confirm that it's okay that I reached my price limit. The purchase order line number 8288. I'll make sure I remember that in case I need to use it. 8288. And there is my purchase order line for this Scholars Portal Books, ready to go. And we're ready to move on to the next topic in training today. So I'm going to switch back to my PowerPoint and continue on discussing EResources ordering. That was ordering resources from the community zone, where the bibliographic record exists in the community zone. You may find situations where you have or you want to buy material that is not in a local, in your community zone yet, in which case you need to create a local collection. So let me just show you briefly how that works. You could build a local collection, and when I say local, it means in your institution zone only, not available to anyone else. It's not in a community zone, it's not for sharing. It is just a local electronic collection, a local bibliographic records. Could be a selective package or aggregator package or database, whatever you need to build. Why would you do this? Well, the obvious one that I just mentioned, if the resource doesn't exist in the community zone and you have access to the bibliographic data from some other source, from the vendor or from a government agency or from your own cataloging staff, whatever you have, it's not in the community zone, you can do it. You can build it here as a local collection. Or maybe it is in the community zone, but it's not all that good. Maybe you've got better metadata directly from the provider or from your own cataloging staff, in which case it's worth building a local collection yourself. So these are the steps that I'm going to be using. Again, you don't need to do it yourself right now because I'm just going to start showing you, and then later you could go back and use the PowerPoint here to follow these steps. I'm just going to switch back out to my Alma training program here and show you how to create a local electronic collection. So in the resources menu over here on the left side, I choose local, add local electronic collection right there. I have to give it a name. I'll just use my own name, Kevin's local electronic collection, and could give it a description. What kind of package is it? Well, let's just say it's an aggregator package. We're just going to have a whole bunch of portfolios in it. What type of service is it? Full text or selected full text? Maybe it's not completely full text cover to cover and so forth. Or maybe it's going to be a database, in which case I'd choose none. But I'm just going to say it's full text. Which library is responsible for this? It's the main library. And if I need to put counter platform, that's here. Save and continue to move on to the next page. This gives me some more fields that I need to take care of. So here again, for this local collection, we now have to deal with the activation of it. What is the activation of the service? We're going to make the service available to our patrons. That means pass it on to the discovery service. We could choose dates. If I choose an active from date, then it won't be made available until the date that I selected. And when it reaches the active until date, it will deactivate and be not available to my patrons anymore. If it became unavailable at a certain point, I would be switching this on and giving some kind of message to explain why it's not available to our patrons. I'm just going to move on to the service description tab. Again, here we have what service type it is. It's full text. We could put a description of this collection so that when patrons see it, they know what it's all about. The linking tab is going to be critical for situations like this. For instance, how are we making access? Are we linking our patrons to the full text content? Are we using parser parameters? Are we using dynamic URL? The vendor will let us know what that is, and we can put in all kinds of the key information in there. Whether it's free or not, this one is not free. Is Crossref supported, and if so, is it enabled? Proxy. So if I want my patrons to be able to access this content, but if they are off campus, if they are outside of the IP range that the vendor knows about us, I'm going to need to have a proxy. I'm going to make sure it's enabled. I'm going to have to already have a proxy built, configured separately so that I can choose it from this list. If there's any kind of link resolver plugin here, any other kind of parser parameters that we need to add, this is the place for those. Again, this provides the actual linking to the full text once the patron discovers the material in the discovery service. And the next tab is the portfolio. So we were building a collection, but a collection is usually built of individual titles. Each of them is one of these portfolios in here. Now I need to add the portfolios, which means I need to have them available somewhere else. Probably you would have some kind of document, some kind of spreadsheet, for instance, or something else that contains the material, that contains the metadata about these portfolios, in which case I could load them here, or I could add them one by one from some kind of package of information, perhaps somewhere even here in Alma. I won't take the time to do that now, but this is the place where you would build all the portfolios. And then when you're done, click Save, and we have our new collection that has been built. All the rest of these tabs are now all available. I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom here to point out the service down here. We have the full text service. It is a local collection. You can see by the local institution zone symbol there. It might be hard to tell if that little institution zone is blue, which means it's been activated. We'd have to activate the portfolios as well. And then when it's all set up, we can make it available. I'll switch to the institution zone tab, and look, there it is. There is my local collection that I just created. The training program that I have, the PowerPoint presentation here, has another local collection that I could demonstrate to you, the database type of collection. I'm going to skip that because we're short on time. I also am going to have to skip the local portfolio, creating a local portfolio. The concept is the same. You're building a portfolio because an electronic resource doesn't exist in the community zone, or you found better metadata from the provider. Here are some steps to try it out on your own. You could try this in your sandbox. You could even try it in your institution zone, as long as you don't make it available to your patrons and activate it for your patrons so they don't see it in discovery. You can still try this on your own. And also, another thing is, once you build a portfolio, if it's a standalone portfolio, that means it's not attached to a collection, not inside a collection. But if you want to attach it to a collection, you can follow these steps. And I will show you this one very briefly because it's pretty quick to show you. You could do a search, an advanced search in Alma. In this case, we're looking for an electronic portfolio in my institution zone where the portfolio is standalone equals yes. So I'm going to find all of the portfolios in my institution zone that are not attached to collections, that are instead standalone. There's 255 in my institution, and well, one of them apparently I built sometime. So if I needed to connect to this to the this portfolio to a collection, I can edit the portfolio here on the right. And then here is the button up at the top, attached to an electronic collection. And then I have to choose my electronic collection. And if I was really smart, I might attach it to that collection that I built myself. So now I have this electronic portfolio, my local electronic portfolio that used to be standalone. It is now part of this electronic collection that I built. All right. The last thing that I'm going to explain, I'm not going to be able to show it to you, is when you have a local resource and then the community zone record gets good enough that you're willing to link it to that community zone record, yeah, you could do that, or the metadata is good, or whatever it is. There are steps shown in this PowerPoint on how to link your collection to the community zone record. It's actually quite simple, as you'll see here. There's just a tool on the row action menu there to link to community. Likewise, if you ever need to unlink your collection from the community zone because for whatever reason things have changed, it's pretty easy to find the steps to do that. I wanted to leave a little bit of time here today to activate those e-resources. So there's a couple of steps to do that. I'll show you the general workflow first. To activate, this is after you've ordered it and it's ready to be activated. The vendor has told you, we have got your order, we have turned it on our end, your IP range is open. Now you, at your institution, need to activate it. You're going to be selecting some key information in there, choose a portfolio activation method, and I'll show you that, and choose an optional about whether new portfolios that come in should be activated, and then you need to test whether it actually works, and then you unsuppress it to your discovery service, which means you make it available in your discovery service. So let's try this really fast. Here's the PowerPoint for you to see later. I'm just going to go switch over to Alma and I'm going to do this. First, I'm going to look at my task list. Here's one task list right here that I keep on my front page. There's also the task list up here on the top menu. Electronic resources, activation, unassigned. So this is not assigned to anyone, but it needs to be activated. We can quick look at this list of material that has come in here, and I believe that might be the package that I was working on yesterday. So I'm going to choose to activate this package that we've already ordered, and it's waiting to be activated. So row action menu over here, and activate is the tool I want. There's some key information I need to fill out here. If there's a change in the name, if this name is not very helpful to my patrons, I might put in a different name right here. The bib record is suppressed. Right now, the bib record is suppressed The collection bib record, let's be very specific, the collection bib record is suppressed, meaning the bib record doesn't get passed to my discovery service and it isn't discoverable by my patrons. Most institutions keep the collection suppressed, keep the bib record collection of the bib record of the collection suppressed so it doesn't confuse patrons when they do searching. Now the content, the portfolios in the service, we do want to make unsuppressed. We want to make it accessible to the patrons, discoverable in your discovery service. Again, do I need to make the electronic collection proxy enabled? I would do this if my collection was a database. In other words, it was just abstracting and indexing citations and such like that. Then I need to make the collection available, unsuppressed, and the proxy turned on so that people can access this content from off campus and choose a proxy. But what I really want to do for this one is, because this is an actual full text collection, is I need to activate the electronic collection service. Again, the collection has a service. We want to make sure that service is collected. I might choose to not make it available quite yet. Making it available turns it on in discovery service. Activation means it's been connected with the vendor. I'm going to hold off, and that doesn't go to my discovery service yet. Now, here's the big question. Do I want to automatically activate new portfolios when the vendor adds them and the Ex Libris metadata librarians add them in the community zone? I do. I bought this as a package, an aggregator package. So I don't want to have to come in here and activate these new portfolios manually. Again, I could choose dates for the activity, and then I click the next. Here's the full text service. Does it get a proxy? Yes, I want my patrons to be able to access this from off campus when they are logged into my proxy. Which portfolios of this collection do I want to activate? This third choice, manual activation, means that on the next page, I would go and pick each portfolio that we have purchased. If I have subscribed to only some of the collection, some portfolios in the collection, then I might do that. On the other hand, if we have purchased selected portfolios and we've selected 3,000 of them, I might choose not to do it manually. I might want to upload a list from Excel, for instance, an Excel file. Maybe the vendor provided me an Excel file of all the 3,000 portfolios that we purchased. I'm going to choose that. Or in my case, I'm just going to activate everything. This is an aggregator collection. We have purchased it all. I'm not going to select individual portfolios. Instead, I'm going to just activate all the portfolios. And we click to the next page. This is just a summary of what I just turned on. We're activating a full text service. There's 21 portfolios to be activated. 2 more additional activations are the electronic collection itself and the service. I concur that that's what I want, and I click activate. That starts the process of activation. If it's a large collection of portfolios, it could take a while for that process to happen. I don't know if you saw the little flag here. It said there's a job. The job has been activated. I'll get an email when the job is done. With only 21 portfolios, it probably won't take very long. But nonetheless, there is the process started. That was the activation process. Now I want to check access. I need to test access. The vendor told me that they've turned it on at their end. They're ready to accept queries from my IP range, but I want to make sure that in fact it works. So I could go to the electronic resource activation task list again and check assigned to me because I worked on it. Now this task is in my list, and here it is, this package. I'm going to go to the row action menu here and test access to this package. It's going to not work today because, in fact, I am not logged into my proxy. I'm working from home, but I am not logged into the proxy, so it won't show up for me. But this is the place I could quickly test to make sure that the access works from this vendor. And if it does work fine, then I could go into the this task here and let the system know that if I edit the task here, I can say the status, checked access. Oh, we're done. Access is confirmed. This is just a note to other staff that the process has been moved along and we're at whatever the next step in our process would be. Which, for instance, if I look at the next slide, What needs to be activated? Well, probably I will unsuppress the service. I'll make sure that the service is active. I could go in and edit that resource right here and quickly check on these other tabs to make sure that we've turned things on. Service is full text. Over here on the additional, we want to make sure that the service is made available. It is full text, but it's not available yet because we didn't select the availability for it. Now it is. The service is turned on. We'll save that. And now this tasks is done. So I will make sure that is marked done. So the rest of my staff knows that this has been activated, unsuppressed, available in our discovery service. I will tell you that when you activate things, it can take 2 to 3 days before it shows up in your discovery service. So don't expect instant results. But that's the process of activating your materials for your patrons. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Just got a couple things to show you for a wrap up here. The next steps that are available to you in this PowerPoint presentation are these 2 links. So when you get access to the PowerPoint, just click on these links or just search for this in the Ex Libris Knowledge Center. These are the 2 areas we've talked about: managing electronic resources, and then the scenarios and workflows are just some ideas. In addition to just going to the Knowledge Days page in the Knowledge Center and getting the resources, for instance, the handouts that I can make available to you, and it's just some practice, some exercises to try the things out that we've been doing. There's other information that's available from Ex Libris that isn't specifically about what we've talked about today, but might be useful. And the links to that are here in the PowerPoint for you to try later, including the idea exchange, where you can make suggestions for our Alma developers to make improvements to Alma to help all of you. The developer network is a great place to share ideas on how to make your Alma work for you in more powerful ways. There's things like the API in there, and lots of other discussions. Analytics is discussed in there. I haven't even explored all of it myself. And then finally, the Knowledge Days webinar presentations. All of these webinar presentations, the recordings for the sessions that have already happened, the links to register for the upcoming sessions are all in there. If you want to find it yourself, it's in the Ex Libris Knowledge Center in the section called Cross Product, because it's not one specific product. Today's session was pretty generic. It was meant for many different people, many different institutions. You may have, well, I'm sure you have. Your institution is unique. I am sure you would be helpful if you had some specific ideas about how to have your Alma at your institution work for you, rather you having to fight Alma to get it to do what you want to do. One of the ways that you can get some ideas for that is to use our premium services team. Amanda, who is on the call with me, is one of the people on these teams with lots of experience working with institutions and with Alma to help you optimize the workflow so that you only do the particular parts of the workflow that you need, and then you can have Alma automatically do the other parts, to give you individual training on one small subject that's just really bothering you or hard for your team to figure out, to help you configure Alma in some of the ways that makes it much more useful for you, or any other individualized assistance. Email address premium.services@exlibrisgroup.com, and we'll get together with you to talk about some kind of service that we could help you with. So if you have any other questions that we didn't get to, we have run out of time here. Go ahead and throw them in the chat. We won't be able to answer them for you today, but it will help us develop these sessions in the future. So feel free to do that. Also, when you close this WebEx session, there will be a survey that pops up. Please take the minute that it takes to just fill out the survey and let us know how this went for you. If there's any suggestions you make, this is my job. This is what I do. I love to know things that worked well for you or things that didn't, so that I can make this better in the future. So I would appreciate you taking the time. And thank you for taking the time to be here, to spend this hour learning basics of electronic resources. I hope it was very helpful, and I hope you can see other sessions in the Knowledge Days. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Kevin and Amanda, and thank you all for attending. We hope we see you at future events in the Knowledge Days series.